Good afternoon and happy Labor Day weekend. Welcome to Kent District Library streaming program, Draw Club with Wade Gugino. He's an artist from Holland, Michigan, and has done several wonderful art programs for KDL, and you may have recognized him from several teen programs that we've done over the summers. He's an artist. Be sure to subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube stations. And to be updated on all our virtual programs, you can also go to kdl.org/events to see what's coming up next. This is the first in our fall series of Draw Clubs with Wade today, and he'll be walking through creating comic characters. And without any further ado, let's turn it over to Wade.
Woohoo! All right, how are you, KDL Universe? Today we're going to go through some really simple steps to draw some of your own characters and draw them well. And it starts very, very simply. And even sort of characters that you might know from the real world, like Scooby-Doo here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, see if you can see the characters like Scooby-Doo, characters like Garfield, okay? And even more realistic characters. We can draw those out using a very simple technique that allows us to put together little shapes and skeletons and build characters on top of them. We basically just build up detail. So the best way to show this is to get started, but I do want to say a couple of things first. We have all sorts of ages here today, and I really want everybody to be able to follow along. So I'm going to start simply, and then we're going to build up during the course of the hour into more complex characters. If at any time you feel like you're getting behind, feel free to type in a comment over there, and the presenters will let me know that I'm going a little too fast, okay? I might be going a little too slow for some of you older kids right at the beginning, but trust me, what you'll learn by the end of the hour will help you to go as fast as you want and actually have the techniques to build any kinds of characters. So, without any further ado, let's get started. You guys are going to need a piece of paper here. You're going to need a pencil, okay? Any kind of pencil will do. I like mechanical pencils just because they're easy to kick the lead out and so on. But if you've got a normal number 2 lead pencil, that's great. And just a normal sheet of copy paper. That's the neat part about drawing, is you don't have to have any kind of special great materials. Now, excuse me, we are going to start over on the left side of the page over here. And I'm going to do something very simple with you and then show you how you can modify that to add more detail. So we're going to go about 2/3 of the way up the page, and we're going to make a very simple circle, okay? Circle's a little bit bigger than a quarter, about the size of a $50 coin. And I know that some of you probably don't even know what that is because people don't use coins anymore, but go ahead and make a decent-sized circle about 2/3 of the way up the page. Okay, it says the bottom of the page is covered by the banner a bit, just a heads up. Yes, I will try and keep the page, the drawings up above the banner down there because I don't think the banner's going away. So I'll keep everything up above that. Thank you for the comment, by the way. All right, and then down underneath this, we are going to go with a very simple little rectangle. And the rectangle kind of tapers in a little bit up towards where the head is, okay? And this might look like we're just drawing stick figures right now, but trust me, once we're done, you're going to see how you can take these simple characters and build them into something more. So this is going to be like a human character right now that we're doing, and eventually we'll do some animals and things along that line. But we're going to take and drop down one little line for a leg here, and one little line for a leg here. And you'll notice that none of my lines are super ground into the paper. When you guys are drawing characters and you're sort of developing them, draw lightly, because when you draw lightly, you can erase easily. When you dig it into the paper, it's very tough to get rid of it later, and then you've got this sort of residual line going through where you don't want it. So we're going to come down on the bottom, and we're going to use some more simple shapes. We're going to draw a triangle that kind of angles off to the side like this, and another one that angles off to the side like this. So now we have 2 little triangles. Part of what makes a character expressive is what their stance looks like. So we're going to give this character a little bow out for an arm like this, like a little V here, and another little V here, and it's going to look like that character's hands are on their waist. Okay, at this point, this could be a boy or a girl. There's really no defining what the character has to look like right from the start because you start with the same features. All right, and then we're going to come up and we're going to make a little square that's kind of weird angled over here. There's like a little bump up here and comes down, and a trapezoid sort of looking thing there. I can zoom in just a little bit for you to see. And then over on the other side, you don't see it all. So you're going to see the top of a square here and a little square down here where there's fingers, okay? And you'll notice in places like this, like we were just talking about, we have to erase, oops, let me get it right there. We have to erase a little bit of what we drew earlier because it's now covered by the hands. So I'm going to erase the line that goes through the hand here, and I'm going to erase the line that goes through the wrist over here. And of course, I'm ending up making more mistakes. And the neat part about drawing is this. If you make a mistake, take the time to erase and try again. Your eraser is your friend when you're drawing. You can't, nobody gets it perfect the first time. And maybe as you practice more and more, you get closer to getting it perfect, but nobody gets it 100% right. So feel free to use your eraser and don't feel embarrassed by that. That's a normal thing. Even great drawers erase a lot. They want to get it right. They want to make it look so that people understand what the character is feeling. Now, up here, we have a head. And we have lots of choices about different kinds of things that we can do for features up there. If we want to make this character really cartoony, you don't have to draw this just yet. We're going to make a choice between different looks here. You can make great big eyes. You can see the difference just by the choice of eyes that you choose. So we've got these great big eyes. Or you can make, let me erase this quick. Remember, I drew it really lightly so I can get rid of all of those lines. We can make really simple little eyes, which are just two little ovals, and then we fill those ovals in, and that gives the character a different look. Or if you want to make the character more realistic, you can start to work on more human-looking eyes with like a curve up top and then maybe a pupil that's down here. And then maybe a little line in the middle like this. So now it starts to look a little bit more realistic. There are so many different features that you can change on a person or on an animal or on any kind of character, really, that it's really only limited by your imagination. And that's the cool part, for just a pencil and a little bit of paper, you can make almost any kind of character. We could turn this into a robot or an alien. We could make it into anything. I'm going to stick with something simple because most people like something that is an easy reference. So I'm going to make this into a girl character, okay? And what I want to show you is that by taking this simple stick figure looking character, we can change just a few little things and start to make it more involved and more in depth. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to make a very light curved line that comes around like this. And that's going to be what's called a line of symmetry. So half of the face is over here and half of the face is over here. And the reason we're doing that is we want to be able to draw the nose and the eyes in a good place. And I want to make that character looking up at like a bird or something like that. So I'm going to take and draw another little curved line like this. And that's going to be the line for the eyes. Okay, that's going to be my eyesight line. So now automatically this little X kind of shows the direction that that character is looking up. And once we've got these basics down, we can add any level of detail to this that we want to. Okay, now obviously it's going to maintain this same shape. If we wanted to make a tall, thin character, perhaps we would have made like a oval over here and a long, thin body and a couple of little lines down here with the feet down this way and arms that come down to the sides. That's a different kind of a shape or a different look. You don't have to draw that part, but understand that we have a lot of leeway, but once we've established the shapes, we've got to kind of stick with those shapes. So we're going to come over here and we're going to say, I want to draw an eye here. So I'm going to start right near the center line, not touching, but near this center line of symmetry. And I'm going to curve up and down and out, and I'm going to leave a little room for an eyelash and another one next to it. Now that looks a little stereotypical. Not all, let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see that a little better. Not all girls have longer eyelashes. They may not even all have longer eyelashes, but there's kind of a cultural norm where, generally speaking, you might have eye mascara on a girl, and so they might have some eyelashes. So it's just one of those things that as a cartoonist or as a drawer of characters, you end up kind of playing on. If you want to make somebody look strong, you might give them a big chest or something along that line. And if you have a character that you want to look a certain way, you kind of play on the stereotypes of that. So we're going to curve out and make two little eyelashes off the side. Now you'll notice this one curved into the center and there's a lot of space over here. This one over here curved all the way out to the edge, and those eyelashes kind of went off the side of the head there. Okay? Now I'm going to erase a little of that line of symmetry through the middle because I know where my eyes are. And right in between those two, I'm going to make a nose. Now again, don't draw this just yet, but we could end up drawing a great big nose for this girl, whoop, like this, okay? And certainly there are all styles of noses out there. We could draw a little tiny sort of petite hook nose like this that kind of comes up like that. And we can draw a lot of different things in between. A big bulb for a nose, somebody that's got like a cold or something along that line. So we have to choose. And I'm going to give you something that's just middle of the road. But remember, you can make yours smaller or bigger. So we're going to come down and just straight out and almost back. It's like the side of a triangle almost. If we were to draw a line here, we just have a triangle. So there's a real simple nose for our girl. And now that we know where the nose is, we can kind of finish the eyes. And remember, we wanted to make it look like she was looking up here. So we're going to put some pupils in the eyes, but we're not going to draw the whole pupil. We're going to draw a part of the pupil and leave a little part here like it's buried up underneath the eyelid, okay? And then over here on the far side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a little circle that looks like it's buried up underneath the eyelid. And one of the things that we can do to make a character look more realistic, even when it's simple like this, is to put a little glint of light, a little circle of light up in the corner. So I'm going to put a little circle of light up in the corner, and I'm going to darken the pupil in. Now, if this was a little bit bigger drawing or a little more in depth, we might do a lot of details on the eyes. We might see the iris, and we might have little lines coming out in different areas where the light kind of bounces off of it. But for starting, like I said, we're going to start very simply, and I want you to have sort of a complete idea for your character here. Now, we're going to come down underneath the eye, and instead of connecting all the way around up into the center here, okay, we're just going to draw a little line right underneath the pupil, because that's really all you need to give the idea that the eye has a lid on the bottom. And sometimes when you get really structural and draw the whole thing out all the way around, it ends up looking more like a shape that's sitting on top of the face rather than being part of the face. Now, we can make this character happy. We can make this character sad. You'll notice when I erased the nose, I got rid of a little of the side of the face. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay that back in there, even though I'll probably erase it again. But erasing is not bad. It helps us get what we want out of the picture. So I'm going to give her a great big smile because, you know, it's a happy day today. It's nice outside. Okay, so we're going to draw a nice big curve, and you'll notice it starts on just this side of the nose and then curves halfway across the eye on the other side. And right now, that just kind of looks like a little smug, happy kind of a look. We're going to make another curve that bows way down deeper and comes up about halfway through the smile about where the bottom of the nose is. So it's a deeper curve, okay? And now she's looking like she's really smiling, looking up at something. And we're going to do another curve inside that's upside down, boom, like this, okay? And we're going to fill that whole space in the back dark, just to give it sort of some depth and make it feel like there's a, I don't know, like a hole going back into your mouth, into your throat, like it is. All right, now we've got this really round face, okay? And not everybody has, I mean, if you look at your face in the mirror, your face is going to be not exactly round, okay? So we're going to come out and we're going to modify that a little bit. So I'm very lightly going to erase all the way around the side of the head here, okay? It's still there. You can still lightly see it there. It's enough for you to see, but we're going to draw a little bit different look. I'm going to come down and I'm going to bow out just a tiny bit around where the smile for the cheek is. And then I'm going to come down underneath the chin here on an angle rather than a circle like we were before. And then I'm going to curve around. And instead of being way circular out here, I'm going to kind of curve upward on a little bit of a curve here. Okay? Because, like I said, everybody's face is not an exact circle. That was just a shape that we used in order to get the idea of the head. Okay, so right now this looks a little weird. We've got this big circle, but it kind of cuts off here. Out at the edge of the eye, we're going to draw a little half circle. Okay, that's going to be our ear. All right. And then up on top, we're going to erase the rest of this big circle that we use, but we're still going to see it underneath where we erase. And we're going to curve from the bottom of the ear, or the top of the ear, excuse me, up and right up at the top of the forehead. We can decide how big we want the forehead to be. If you want a lot of forehead, you go way up high like this, and then down and make a little peak there. However, I think it would be better if the forehead was just a little bit less high like that. And we bring it up and down into the center. It almost looks like you're making an M here. You curve up and come down to a little point, and then you curve up and come down to the far side of the head now. Boom. So now look, we have a character that is starting to take shape as a real looking character. We have to decide what kind of hairstyle we want. Do we want a hairstyle that is kind of easy, like pulling the hair back into a ponytail and putting it off the back? Do we want a hairstyle that's sort of modern and you can have it cut any of a number of different ways? I think for this one, we'll do something simple that shows that you can do a lot of different kinds of diverse things with simple shapes. We're going to come down off the side here, and we're going to make a little curved triangle that comes up like that, and then erase. And that's going to be part of the hair coming down in front of the ear. On the far side, we're going to come off this little curve here and make a little triangle that's curved, that's kind of a little tuft of hair off the front. Okay? And because we have one here, we're going to extend this one up, okay, and bring it into the center like this. Now we have to decide where we want the hair to go out the back. Usually there's a part, and because our angle of our face goes this way, the part would come back here, so we'd have a bump up out here and a little bump up down here. So we'd come together just a little bit to the left of the center where we made this point. We go up and make another little M like that. And then we can bring the hair down to the side, curve it out, and bring it around like this. And on this side, do the same thing. Bring it down, curve it out, and bring it around like this. So you're just kind of bumping in and then making a big curve down to the edge of the side of the face. All right. Let me look up to see if there's any comments. Doesn't look like we're going too fast for folks, so that's good. Now we're going to curve back and make another little curl and bring that in back behind the hair, or behind the head, excuse me, and do the same thing here. There's a point here. Bring it back and back in behind the head. Now we have, instead of just a circle on top of this body, we have a pretty developed character. And we could add lots and lots more details if we wanted to. We could end up making a little dimple here, okay? We could end up adding a little bit of blush or color to the cheeks to give it sort of a feel of, hey, that's kind of cool. We could add eyebrows. If we want the character to look more human, we could have a nice eyebrow. And where we place those eyebrows really helps us to determine the kinds of expression the character has. So I'm making them kind of neutral. They're about halfway up the forehead, and they're just right over the eyes. But if I dug one down deep into the center like this and kind of brought it up like that, she'd look different. She'd look a little bit more like she was questioning things, or if we didn't have a smile, she might even look mad with that eyebrow. But your eyebrows can make a big difference in how the expression is. So we're just going to draw those in simple. And if you want to add something to the hair now, you can. Like usually in the part, there's a little bit of darkness up there. It's just an extra level of detail. Okay? And then as you get out to the hair itself, you're going to follow kind of around the top, and you're going to very lightly make little strands of hair that give the hair a flow. You follow where you think the hair would be and bring it all the way down to the bottom, kind of curving it in and out the way the hair would look. Okay, so now we've got hair here, and in close to the head, that hair is going to be a little bit darker. This little piece up front, we can add some lines to show that it's a bunch of little strands of hair. And if you ever lose it because it's like the same color as the back there now, you can sometimes just add a little extra darkness, because you drew light to start with, but we can add just a little extra darkness to define the outlines of our characters. And especially when you're dealing with simple characters like that, that's an easy thing to do. Some of the lines that you'll see on cartoons are quite thick for the borders. And then others, if you're talking about comic book art, sometimes can be very, very thin. It's like they want to work the drawing with shadows and light. So I'm going to make some hair that comes out and curves around here. And I'm going to thicken my lines now for this hair up here, and I'm going to fill that in. And I'm going to thicken my lines down here, and I'm going to fill that in with little hairs. So go ahead and take some time to fill those details in. And remember, as we get close to the face and close to the head, there's going to be a little bit more darkness up underneath there. Okay, just a little bit more, because there's shadow up underneath there. Those are the little details that we add. Now look at this. This is turning into a character that you might see on a cartoon strip or on Saturday morning cartoons or something along that line. And there are a million more little details that you can add. Just little dots like this, little lines like this, or markings kind of give an idea that maybe the person's got a little bit of tiredness or some sort of makeup on or something along that line. Those tiny little things make a difference. Now, we have a body here that's just a simple rectangle on an angle, and we have arms that go out to either side, hands on the hips, and then stick legs and these triangle feet. We can add all sorts of detail to that now. We've got the basics for the shape, and we know that this is the shape that we want. So the neat part about this is that we can just start building clothing or building outfits on top of it. I want to make the arms and the legs a little thicker so we don't have a stick figure. Now that we have where the legs are, I can very simply draw two little lines to either side, or if you want to, almost you can just use the one line. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker here, but a lot of times you can just add a second line to it, and now you've got a size of leg that's a little bit more realistic to an actual character as opposed to a stick figure. Now I'm going to go through the center, and I'm going to erase that original stick leg that was in there. It was just a placeholder. It was just a way for us to build something a little more realistic, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing for the arms. I'm going to come out from the shoulder, and I'm going to taper down to the elbow. I'm not going to actually make it a total point of a triangle, but I'm going to make it so that it goes from fat to thin, because your shoulder is bigger than your elbow. And the same thing here. I'm going to go from this angle down toward my wrist, okay? And I'm going to go from fatter to thinner. So it's kind of like you're making a triangle but not making the point, and then making a triangle and not quite making the point here. But you'll see that we just use that little skeleton or that little stick figure arm there as a direction for our drawing, and we erase it now inside, and it's like it was never there, okay? Now we've got this thick arm that we can deal with. Same thing out the other side. Go to the other side, make this side just a little thicker here and a little thicker here. And then from that angle, taper it down to the wrist. Make it like a little triangle there. Then we have to go inside and erase the lines inside. All right. Now that's kind of a cool character. I've never drawn this character in my life before, and you guys can draw anything if you use this technique. If we wanted to draw an elephant, sometimes I will ask you, and we'll get into this a little later, to maybe jot down a list of things that you want so that you remember them when you're drawing. Like maybe you want an elephant that's surfboarding, or an elephant that's laying out in the sun by the beach or something. Write those little things down because they help you to remember how to draw that well. For this character, since it's just kind of a basic character and not doing anything in particular other than looking this way, I thought we'd not really write anything down to start with, but it's very helpful to jot notes down as well. So we're going to come up here and we're going to decide, what do we want this character to wear? Well, I think she should be wearing a jacket. So I'm going to pull down, starting to get to be fall here. Pretty soon we're going to have cooler weather. So I'm going to pull down a little curve here for a jacket and a little curve up here. And again, jackets are way more complex than that. We could have little wrinkles and zippers and pockets. You can add those levels of detail if you want them as you go. But for now, let's start with one more layer of detail, which is just a curved line and another. It makes a little V here under the chin. And we have to decide, okay, this jacket, it's going to have sleeves, so we're going to make a little curve here and a little curve here for the sleeve. A little curve here and a little curve here for the sleeve. Do we have a collar? Sure, why not? Those are simple enough to do. We're going to draw a little curved down triangle like this on the outside of this triangle and another little curved down triangle over here. So now this person has kind of a collared jacket that they're wearing. We can put a little curved line here and curve it up, and another one over here to make it look like there's pockets. And we can add a little circle right at the tip. Is this up close enough for you guys to see? Let me zoom that in just a tiny bit more. Right at the tip of the V here, we can make a little circle or a little square if you would rather. And then off of that, we're going to draw a little triangle or a little rectangle that tapers. Doesn't quite come to a point like a triangle, but it's kind of a cross between a rectangle and a triangle there. And there's our little zipper. Okay. Now, we can decide, what do we want the bottom of the coat to look like? Do we want it to have sort of a elastic hem? Do we want it to bow outward? We could do that. We could take it and curve it outward like this and make it look like maybe a little bit more stylish coat, okay? Or just by changing a simple detail, we could maybe curve it inward, okay? And then on the bottom of it, like we did with the wrists up here, maybe make a little hem that kind of comes in, and then it looks more like a recreational jacket or something along that line. So we just curve along the bottom and curve up the side so it looks like the fabric is curving inward. And then we make another little parallel line right underneath here, and then we add the little stretchy bands to the waistline there. And the same thing up here, we can add those little stretchy bands to the cuffs, and it makes it look like those cuffs are more like a sweatshirt kind of a jacket. Now, this one is about the right size, but this one over here is just a little bit too long in my estimation. So because I don't like that, I'm going to take the time to erase and make a change in detail. Okay? Now, we're just about done with this character. All right, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. She's got some pretty short legs, though. What's neat about this is we haven't invested so much time in the legs that we couldn't draw them a little bit longer if we wanted to. Or we can keep them this way. And we could give her big feet or little feet or anything that we wanted, because we are, with just a little bit of imagination, able to do anything. So I'm going to stay with this general shape, but make her legs just a tiny bit longer, because I think that that is going to look kind of cool. Now, sometimes when you lay a character out in shapes and skeletons, it gets to be a little bit difficult to change them because you might be inside of a cartoon frame. And we're going to talk about that next month when we're drawing a cartoon, how we fit things into a frame or make it fit into a space that we need. But right now, we've got the whole paper. So I'm going to make this just a little bit longer, and I'm going to fill those pants in a little bit darker. And the reason I'm doing that is because we had some lines up in the hair. Okay, and those lines made the hair a little darker. And then we have a jacket that's pretty wide open and light. And then we are going to make some pants that are dark, and it gives you what's called a light-dark contrast. All right, so you have a little dark up here and a little dark down here where the pants are, and that looks like there's some visual interest because it looks like there's different kinds of layers of light and dark there. All right, and then we have to decide what kind of shoes and what kind of bottoms of pants. We could make these flare out at the bottom, or we could cut them tight. She looks kind of like she's in an athletic mode, so I'm going to cut these tight down here like they're yoga pants or running pants or something. And I'm going to give her those same triangles but a little bit further down. So I'm going to erase the ones that we had very quickly because they're real light. And I'm going to make a triangle like this, and I'm going to angle it a little bit toward me instead of straight across. And I'm going to make another one over here, a little bit deeper, angle it over here. Okay? And sometimes you don't make super straight lines with these. These can be kind of sketchy lines, but you want to try and clean them up a little bit so that you can draw your shoes over top of that. Now, we have to add details on the shoes and on the hands, and we'll have one complete character done. And you can do this for a cast of characters. So you could make 6 or 8 different characters that have this similar looking feature or set of features, but they could be different characters in a whole different comic strip or in a little animation. So let's come down here, and we're going to stick with a real simple look for the shoes, and we're going to bump out and around, and we're going to come down and make a little parallel that bumps in and around. All right, and then we're going to erase that flat line. So what we did was took our triangle and curved it here and curved it here just a little bit. Let me see if I can zoom in on that for you just a little. There we are. And then we took and made a little bow out for the rubber on the bottom of the shoes. And just by making a couple little parallel lines that curve out, cut across and back, and so on, we can give a look of laces going across the top of our shoe. You can do the same thing on the other side, little curve, and then this is more of a side shot, so we're going to make a parallel that just looks almost like it's flat going all the way across because you can't really see it angling in as well. There's a little curve there, but that's about it. And you can angle up over top. Now, these shoes, they can have any kind of insignia that you want. You can make up your own. You can put a little star around there, or a little Nike swoosh, or a little Adidas, or if you come from overseas, you know, Kappa or those kinds of logos, but you can make up your own as well. The last thing that we have to do is finish up our hands. And there's not a lot to be done here, but when you think about where your hand is, when you bring it into the side of your body, you're looking at the back side of your hand and your thumb is popped up over top here. So you're going to draw a little angle for where your knuckles are for your fingers, and where your thumb comes up, it's kind of over top. All right. And then we're going to bump in and out about 3 or 4 times here for the knuckles that are going into the side of the sweatshirt. And then we're going to curve out and around, and I am going to bring my wrist up, for my hand up off of my wrist, and curve right up into that little gap there. So it looks like my fingers are kind of off on an angle now behind. So now we have a hand with those fingers sticking out. And you can't really see the thumb on this side, but you can see the side of the hand, and we can make a differentiation for fingers over here. So now it looks like the little fingers are sticking out over on the other side. And now let's zoom back out. See this? This is a pretty in-depth character in a pretty short period of time. We're about halfway through. We've drawn a simple character. And we could take that same approach, and I'm going to do this very fast just for you, but we could take that same approach and take this tall, thin character and maybe switch up the eyes a little bit, okay? And you can do this if you can draw fast, but you don't have to draw along with me. I just want to show you that doing some of the same things that we just did for this one character and laying them onto a different character, maybe that one's looking up, maybe that one's not so sure about what they're looking up at. Maybe we're going to make this into a guy. So I'm going to give this a little mustache and a little beard that comes down, kind of looks like me. Come over here and make that ear like we talked about over here, but then I'm going to bring that beard down. Okay. Maybe I'll make this guy look a lot like me. Maybe I'll take him up and give him some hair out here. Okay. And down. And you can see that even with a stick figure, you guys can make a pretty reasonable likeness of yourself. Now, this isn't perfect, and this is being drawn very quickly, but you can see there's some similar look to this character and to me. And, you know, if I made my eyebrows on a little different angle like this and like this, I'd look a little bit more worried. Okay, and if I want to make my shirt, maybe I do have a collar on as well up here, but I want to make my shirt long and thin. I kind of bring it down over top of my pants, fill these in with some triangles like this. And you'll see that you can build just about anything. Maybe I've got a short sleeve shirt, so I'm going to come out and make a little short sleeve up here. All right. And I'm going to take those arms and I'm going to taper those down. Give them a little side. So now you can see we've got two different kinds of characters. Maybe I've got great big hiking boots on or something like that, so I can make these boots look huge, or who knows why my feet are big like this. But just changing those little things can make a big difference. And I can just hang my hands down here. And you can see in a short time, you can take the same technique that we use to build a character like this and build something similar, but really entirely different. And then if we do like we did over there and add a little bit of darkness here and there, fill in a little shadow here and there, and then all of a sudden this character looks a whole lot more like one that we could play with and turn into something different. Now, we started building this character with shapes where we had a circle, and then we had a rectangle, and then we built some stick lines and so on. I want to go ahead and build something different. I want to build an animal with you guys, and I want to do it using a thing called a skeleton, okay? So take a couple seconds, shake your hands out, shake your neck out. I'm going to take a drink of Mountain Dew here because, you know, a little extra Mountain Dew helps. You always have to have a soda when you're drawing. Don't tell your parents that. That's me. I'm old. It's much better to have water. Have water while you're drawing. All right. Now we're going to move over here. But before we draw on this side of the paper, I want to think about what we're going to draw. Okay? We talked about elephants before. We could draw just about anything we want to. A giraffe. We could draw a lion. We could draw anything. I think it would be kind of fun to draw a cat because everybody likes cats, or a lot of people like cats. Cats and dogs seem to be really popular. So we could draw a dog or a cat, but I want to show you that building the general look of them can be done similarly to what we did with shapes over here, but we can do them with what's called a skeleton. So right about the height of our head of our character here on the left, we're going to draw another circle. That's about like this, okay? And instead of just drawing a cat that's sitting here, you know what, let's draw a dog. I think it'd be fun if there was like a dog that was like a big lumbering dog coming over to say hi and maybe jumping on the characters. So before we get going, let's come over here to the side and say, there's maybe not enough room over there for you to see it. Let's go up to the top here, and we're going to write dog, okay, big. We're going to write jumping, because that's what we want to try and make it look like. And maybe, you know, at this point, then we can add whatever other kinds of imagination we want to. Maybe we write, you know, slobbering. You know, maybe the dog just drank some water, or it's one of those dogs that has a perpetual spit problem or something like that. So dog, big, jumping, slobbering, and maybe happy. Okay, he's a big, dopey, happy dog that's slobbering and jumping. So that's why this one who owns the dog is real happy, and this one who doesn't own the dog is like, look at that thing. So we have these words to guide what we want to do. We have a head over here, okay? We're going to make a nice big dog, so I'm going to draw a nice big muzzle of a dog, which is just kind of like a rectangle coming out of the side here. Okay, so we've got a big circle, big rectangle, and then we want to make the dog look like it's jumping, so we have to think about that. It's like, okay, does the dog have a back that's curved like this when it jumps, or is it curved like this, or is it just angled down? One of the things that we can do above just drawing a static pose like this, and above just drawing little shapes and so on, is to draw a line that we can build the character on. So I'm going to draw it like the dog is jumping, and I'm going to draw an arrow that looks like it's jumping towards the person. Okay, I'm drawing this super light because we're going to get rid of it. But let's draw that arrow in, boom. That's going to be called a line of action. We're going to take that line of action and build this big, dumb, jumping, slobbering, happy dog on that line of action. Okay, so we have the head, we can draw a little neck out here, and we can draw the skeleton. I'm going to make a sort of set of shoulders here that comes out to the side. And dogs have elbows and paws that come out of their body. So we're going to come and draw a little elbow and a little paw that curves out like this. And you can't really see the other one on the other side, but we'll kind of allude to it by drawing like this on the other side. We're going to curve down the backbone like this. So we're going to curve along that line of action that we drew. Okay. And we're going to make some hips that curve like this. And then the back legs come out, okay, and go back up like this. And they come out and go back up like this. So what we've done is we've built along this line of action, the size of this big lumbering dog. And you'll notice that my skeleton is big. It's big compared to these characters over here. We've made them big because we want to make it this big lumbering, slobbering dog. Now that we have the motion of the character and the size and the general layout, we can erase that line of action. That line of action just helps us to get the motion right, okay? Get the look of the motion right. Otherwise, your dog is jumping straight up and down or looking like he's diving into the ground or something. We want it to look like it's jumping up at these two people on the side. So let's come over here and think about where would our tail be. This is going to be a happy dog, we said. That's why we wrote this down. So we're going to make a tail that kind of comes off the back and just looks like it's wagging in the wind. Okay, he's super happy. All right, so we just draw a little line up over there. And now we can build onto that skeleton. The dog is going to have a body. And usually for humans and even for animals, we kind of draw a big rib cage down like this, off one side and off the other. And we curve it around and back. So we're going to draw this big rib cage out and around for the body. And we're going to draw a little space for the shoulder of our dog and a little circle for the elbow of our dog. And we're going to come out to where the end of the paw or the wrist would be and draw another little circle out there. We're going to see that on the other side as well. There'll be a shoulder, but you can't see the elbow because it's behind the body. And it's tough to see the other wrist because it's going to be behind the head and neck. You remember, a dog's neck isn't small like ours. This is going to kind of curve right up into this shoulder and down. And then down here at the hips, we're going to draw kind of the bones that are in there. It looks almost like a little pair of underwear. Okay. And then we can do the same thing. We can draw a big hip here and a little hip out over here and a little knee area down here and a little ankle area down here. All right, and you will see that that gives us a little size to our character to build on. All of this is going to get erased. Eventually, we get rid of it all. So it may seem like a waste of time, but what this does is give us the ability to see whether or not the proportions are good before we start to draw, and whether or not we're feeling happy about the way it is. Now we're going to have some little paws off the bottom that are kind of pushing off the ground. So we're going to draw those like this, boop, boop, like this. It's almost like a little curve up and down, looks like a little bean. We're going to have some paws out here that are kind of up in the air, like I'm going to come and jump on you and put my paws on you. That's what dogs do when they're excited. Okay, or at least the dogs that I've had. I maybe don't train them as well as other people do. And then once we've got this basic shape laid out here, and we know where the tail is and we know the look, and I can't really see the other arm going behind, we can add some little bits of that once the head is done. Okay, we can start to add details. Do we want this dog to have big floppy ears? So don't draw this yet, but do we want to have it curve around like this with one ear here and another ear here and have big floppy ears like this? Okay, that's kind of a cool looking dog. And it looks like with those ears flopping in the wind, like he's, sort of flying through the air. I like that quite a bit myself, but let's look at the way a couple of others might look. So hold on for a second and let's maybe draw some triangle ears that are sort of forward. Okay, so it maybe looks like the dog is really like, pointed towards the front and really looking like it wants to jump towards its owner. Or some dogs have little kind of curved ears a little bit. They look almost like little bears. Okay. See, I don't like that one so much, but when you play around with it and erase and work on different details, you can get the look that you want. Now, I'm going to go back to the first one because I think that one looked really cool. It made it look like that character where that dog was flying through the air. So let's go back here. Let's draw this great big ear out here. And remember, you can always modify later when you're done. If you want those ears to be smaller or if you want them to be bigger, you can change that. Okay, so right now they're this size, but maybe later they'd be much bigger. All right, and you can't see the head now through the middle of the ear, so I'm going to erase that. And we've got a little bit more complete character. All right, now we're going to come up front here and we're going to start to add some details. What kind of a nose do we want? Well, it can look like a real dog nose, which is sort of like a curved triangle like this. I think that looks pretty good. Or if you wanted to make the character look cartoony, you could choose your own detail and say, you know what, I want to make this into a big old cartoony looking snout on a dog, okay? And that could look fine as well. I think that the more realistic one looks good, but maybe just a tiny bit bigger so that it's got a little cartoon feeling to it. So I'm going to make that curved triangle, but I'm going to make it curve out a little bit bigger than we had before. And I'm going to stick with that. And for right now, since we're not going to add a ton of detail, I'm just going to fill that in nice and dark. Okay? Now, we have this circle and we have this rectangle that come together. And that doesn't happen actually on a dog's head, so we're going to get rid of that. And we want a dog that's slobbering, right? So we got to have the mouth open, otherwise there's no slobber that can come out. So let's come up top and curve down, and instead of just coming straight back here, let's curve upward a little bit and downward like this and around, okay? And then we're going to erase the bottom of that rectangle. So what we did was we came down to the bottom of where the rectangle was, but we curved, and then up and around it, made room for the mouth to be open back here, okay? And we want to have a tongue that's hanging out because that's where the slobber comes from, is back in the mouth. So at the bottom of this curve, we're going to make a big old flappy tongue coming out, which is just a big curve, kind of looks like the ears, okay? We have this ear up here, this one here, and this tongue is kind of doing the same thing. It curves around, looks like a big bean as well. And maybe a little line in the middle of that tongue coming out to the side that kind of shows you where the center or the middle of the tongue is. Now the bottom of this, we're going to draw a little lip. So we're going to curve up now and draw a lip. And we're going to bring the chin down a little bit deeper and bring it into the head back here. And the head, instead of being a circle as we curve around, we're going to bump it a little bit forward, okay? That's like a cheek back there, a cheekbone. This kind of comes around into the cheekbone, and then we start from where the cheekbone comes up, and we curve that into the head up top. Okay, so now you'll see, instead of having a circle, we've started to modify the look of that just a little bit by adding details. This line came straight out, but you're going to see a little bit of the far side of the nose, so we're going to make it just a little bit higher and curve it just a little bit, so that it looks more like a dog's snout rather than just a straight line. Okay, now this dog doesn't look super happy, and remember, happy was one of our things. So even though we've made this curve so that the slobber can come out, we can still determine to make it look like this dog is smiling. So we're going to curve up, okay, and maybe I want to make this just a little bit bigger up here, a little bit fatter, so that it's not quite so skinny up in the nose since we're digging so far back for a smile. But you can see that if we make that a little thicker and bring this up into a curve, looks like this dog has got a big old smile as he's jumping, and his tongue's hanging out. You might not want to take it quite back that far, but it's close, okay? Now, we have a place for eyes. And remember, with our other characters, we had to choose what kind of eyes we wanted. This dog is happy, so we want to have big, wide open eyes. And no matter how we make those, whether it's just one big open area with a couple little dots in it, like that, which could be kind of cool, or whether we make it look more like a realistic dog eye, or if we stick with just cartoon dog sorts of eyes, We want to make them nice and big. So I'm going to draw a nice big circle here. Okay. And then we can see the other eye on the other side just a little bit. So we're going to kind of draw another little circle over there, parallel. And I'm going to draw the nose as if it has a little bump going up in between those two. So now we've got this big set of eyes. This dog is looking right at these two. So we're going to put a tiny, tiny little dot in the front of both of the big eyes. And the reason we do that is to show that the eyes are looking this way, but the tiny dot is to show excitement, because usually when you're afraid or excited, your eyes on the outside of them are big, but your pupils are tiny. You're like, oh, you're so excited. Okay. I'm going to draw the eyebrows actually up off of the dog. Okay. Way up here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it's like I'm so surprised or so happy that I'm having my eyebrows jump off the top of my head. And as we curve around up here, we're going to draw a couple little triangles that are little tufts of hair for the top of the dog's head. All right, and if you want to, you can even give a little line down here underneath the eye. And it makes that dog look a little bit almost deranged in happiness. It's like, ha, 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 ha. Okay, now we said slobber. So we should probably add some slobber. And I want to make this looks like a big bit of a fat chin here. I want to modify this just a tiny bit. So I'm going to bring this up here and then back and curve it into the side of my back jaw here. So I made that just a little less fat, and it looks a little more dog-like, but it also leaves room for these big drops of slobber. Okay, and I'm going to put some on the tongue and some kind of off the front here like it's flying out. Okay, so this dog's got a big old slobber problem, and these little drops are just a point with a curve coming back to the point, like that. Now, we've developed a fairly involved head, and we might want to, add a little bit of texture to the ears. If you want to, I'm just drawing a simple line around here. If you want to, you could make these like little triangle tips, okay? And you could turn this into kind of a floppy-eared dog with little triangle fuzzes all around. You guys can choose which one you want, which of these two approaches you want. I kind of like the way the little fuzzy ones look, so I'm going to make the other one look fuzzy here. But those are decisions that you can either make before you're drawing or when you're in the middle of it, say, oh, I wonder what that would look like. And then when you try it, if it looks good, stick with it. And if it doesn't look good, you can always erase and go back. And I'm going to add a little shadow on this side, and I'm just going to lightly darken in the rest of the ear, because sometimes the ears on a dog are a little different color or have a little contour to them that gives them sort of a different light or dark feel. I'm going to make just a little bit darker on the bottom here because of shadow. And now look, that's kind of a cool looking dog. But we've got to finish off the rest of them. The neck of a dog comes down off of the spine and then curves up. And usually the shoulders are pretty big up here. And then it curves down into the middle of the back and then up around sort of the rear end area, and then curves down into the thighs and the hamstrings going back into the legs. So we're just going to do this big curve that goes all the way down and in and then back up around the rear end and down into the leg here. And the same thing over here. We're going to kind of come off the bottom of the chin here, curve around, and then we're going to make this body sort of curve down somewhat. Usually there's not like a big muscly rib cage. A dog can be strong, but they usually have kind of a little bit of a stomach sticking down here. So we're going to curve down into the hip, and then we're going to curve down around the outside of the front of the knee, and then back up to the leg back here. Okay, so we've got a whole lot of stuff here that we just bypassed by drawing this all the way around the outside. We're going to leave all of that mechanics inside of that until we're done drawing the rest of the character. The tail comes out of the middle here. So we're going to draw sort of the rest of the back end of this leg. And then we're going to curve on a different angle. This curves outward. This one curves a little inward down to the ankle. Okay? Same thing over here. We're going to curve out down to the bottom of the knee, and then that's going to curve into the back of the ankle here, or the the front side of the ankle, but the far side from us. And then we're going to come off the back, and we're going to curve at the other angle into the ankle here. And we're going to draw our tail a little bit more defined, just a little bit bigger, and tapering like a big triangle coming out of there. Okay? And then off the other side, we have to draw the front shoulder. Curves around. We go from big circle down to little circle. And then we curve it out to the front from the top of the circle down to the little circle that's the wrist. And then we'll work on the paws afterwards, okay? So we've got this body now for our dog, okay? We've got to get rid of all these little circles and all of these little lungs and skeleton lines and all the stuff that we used to build the basic size of our big lumbering dog. We want to get rid of all that internal stuff. This was how you build it up step by step, but once you're done with that, you don't want people to see all of that. You want them to see just the outside of the dog that you drew, or the person, or the alien, or the robot, or the sea creature of some variety. You want something that gives the structure to it and looks good, but then you get rid of the structure, okay? You don't want them to see that underneath. And the neat part about pencil is it erases pretty well. Now, I've done a pretty quick job of it here, but if you spend some time, you could totally get rid of any lines that are in there. All right, now, we're getting close to the end of time. We only have a few minutes left, so let's add some details to this dog and a little bit of details to the background, and we'll be done, okay? So I wanted to add just a tiny bit of shade to my tongue because it's in your mouth, it's pink, it's kind of darker than some other things, so I'm just going to add a little bit of shade to that tongue, and I'm going to curve down off of the shoulder here and into the front forearm in a way that it doesn't really curve back quite so much as I did originally there. And I'm going to make this just a tiny bit fatter because the forearm looks a little short. This is a big lumbering dog. Once we've got the outside, we can see what the general shape of the dog looks like, and we can modify. Okay, my stomach, chest, it looks okay for a dog. You know, it could be a little bit fatter down here or a lot thinner if it's a more skinny, sort of streamlined dog, but we wanted a big, jumping, slobbering, happy dog. So we got the jumping, we got the slobbering, we got the big compared to the character, and we've got the happy a little bit, and it's a dog. So let's just finish off the details. I'm going to draw a little bit of darkness in the background here, make it look like there's a other side of the mouth. I'm going to give this character a little curved triangle for the tooth, okay? You can draw as many of those as you want in there, but you don't want to clutter it. So maybe we've got 2 teeth here, all right? And then as we come out to the end of this paw, I'm going to erase a little bit because the angle is kind of off, but it's basically what we want. I'm going to make it a little bit more of a splayed out, bigger, like rectangle that tapers, or a little triangle that doesn't come to a point here. So there's my big paw. And I'm going to draw one little line that curves around and catches the bottom of the toe here and then curves into the paw. And I'm going to do another one and another one, okay? And then like a little thumb over here. Now, they don't actually have thumbs like we have, but sometimes you make some of their features look a little bit like our features on our bodies because people relate to that in drawings. And sometimes if you're doing it very realistically, you wouldn't do that. Okay, now off of the bottom of this, we could do like we did with the ears and add little fuzzes all the way around. But for right now, since we have limited time, I'm just going to make a little fuzz off of the back of the elbow, okay? And if you remember, we had another circle over here for a shoulder and another elbow that came out over here. You may want to make the other line of the other arm kind of coming through there, but you wouldn't really see much of anything. You know, it almost gets to be distracting behind there to try and put the other paw in. Or if you wanted to change up, you could erase that and think about a dog that's jumping and one paw is forward and the other one is kind of back. So it would be out back here and then down here. And you might draw the dog's paw coming out back here and then with a little tapered triangle this way. Okay, so it looks like he's sort of in step. All right, and if that's the case, then we would curve up that little toe there, and that little toe there, and that little toe there. We erase in between those. We put that little nub for a sort of their little side nub on their back paw there, on their front paws there. And if you want to, you can add some pads down on the bottom of the feet a little bit, make it look like a dog, just a little bit of darkening there. Okay, I'm going to add some fur like we did on the elbow up here on the back. Okay, so let's come up here, and then we'll finish this up in 1 minute here. We're right at time, and I want you to have a finished set of drawings here that kind of goes together. So we're going to add a little fuzz on the back here, bring it down, okay, all the way down to the legs, bring up the back leg a little bit further here, bring a little fuzz off the front of the knees, just little curved triangles like that and that and that. We're going to erase up into the foot and up here. And what I want to do on the tail is when we curve it up and over, I'm going to add like a little darkness to the tip of it so it looks like it's got different tones, a little bit like we've done in other places. I'm going to erase where the rear end comes through it here. And I'm going to give it a couple little lines on either side. These are called lines of motion. It's not the motion line. Oh, no, this was a line of motion. Excuse me. These are called motion lines. They're lines that show motion in something. So we can draw little lines that make that tail look like it's flopping. And then we just finish up our curve here for our toe, and our curve here for our toe, and our curve here for our toe, and bring it up into a paw with a bump there, and erase inside. And we do a curve for our toe, curve for our toe, curve for our toe, and bring it around into a bump for the side. And again, if you want to add a little pad in between here, like the little pads on the bottoms of dogs' feet, that's an extra detail that you can add. And this dog is jumping towards this character. Let me zoom out just a little bit, or towards these two. We're going to draw a couple little lines that show that motion. Okay? Now, you could add lots of extra little details to this. You could add some shadow. Okay? You could add different kinds of features like a collar, or maybe your dog's got some kind of a scar, or wears some kind of a bracelet, or things along that line. All of that can be added, but you can see that by starting with simple shapes, we can build a pretty complex set of characters. Or by building with a skeleton and playing around with the sizes of the lines and the general look, we can get realistic looking characters that we can build details on. You guys can do that with anything. Every kid that I have ever met, they might say they can't draw. They can draw if they spend a little bit of time at it. And if you like drawing, don't be discouraged. Just play around with it a little bit more and a little bit more. And I can promise you, you'll be able to eventually draw whatever you want. And just so you know, if you ever have any questions about drawing, the name of my company is Goo Genius, okay? And if you go to googenius.com, you can see some of the cartoons that I've done, and you can also look there for our draw club, which we do in Grand Rapids every Thursday with kids, starting up this Thursday. And I will always, there's an email address on that website. I will always be happy to answer your questions about cartoons. I love cartoons. I think they're great for kids, and I would love to see you guys learning how to cartoon well, because it's good for your mind and it's a lot of fun. So I'm done for the day. It's been really a pleasure to work with you guys. Sorry that we ran over a couple of minutes here, but I hope you go on drawing, and I look forward to talking to you next month. Thanks, guys.
All righty. Thank you so much, Wade, for another wonderful class. I am sure you all enjoyed it. And again, like Wade said, it's just practicing and continuing to hone that skill. You have another opportunity next month on October 3rd. Wade will be back virtually, and he'll go over some more new skills. I hope you have a wonderful holiday this Monday, and be sure again to check in with our Facebook and YouTube pages for upcoming streaming events. Thank you so much.